An independent panel of medical experts has completed its evaluation of detained former President Rodrigo Duterte and submitted its report to the International Criminal Court. Duterte's lawyer Nicholas Kaufman confirmed that both the defense and prosecution have received the confidential findings, with all parties invited to submit their observations by December 12. The ICC Pre-Trial Chamber earlier created the three-member panel to assess Duterte's fitness to stand trial amid claims from the defense that the former president is experiencing cognitive decline. Composed of specialists in forensic psychiatry, neuropsychology, and geriatric and behavioral neurology, the panel was instructed to determine whether Duterte has any medical issues that could affect his ability to understand the charges, evidence, and overall conduct of the pre-trial process. Now let's discuss the latest developments regarding this issue at the ICC with Attorney Gilbert Andres, an ICC-accredited lawyer. Attorney, thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Attorney, nakamute po ata kayo. We can't hear you. Let's try that again.
Morning.
Yun, perfect.
Yun. Attorney, thank you for joining us this morning. We were talking about a while ago yung issue on the former president about his fitness to stand trial. Now, do you have any idea what's going to happen?
Well, we don't really know as of now, what the actual medical evaluation, because that's really just given to the parties. And I don't think there's a publicly redacted version. What I do know is that this was passed to the Pre-Trial Chamber last December 5. And then December 12, all of the parties and participants, that means to say the Office of the Prosecutor, the Defense, as well as the Office of the Public Counsel for Victims, they will give their observations on the said matter.
But if and when the Pre-Trial Chamber decides based on the findings on the medical evaluation, at nakita po nila doon, let's say for example, hypothetically, ay hindi nga po fit to stand trial si Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte, what happens then to the case?
Well, first and foremost, fitness to stand trial, it's a legal term. So it's really the pre-trial chamber which will determine that. It's not the three-person panel.
Right.
The three-person panel will only discuss and will only analyze any medical conditions that might affect Mr. Duterte's participation. And then they will actually suggest any mitigating factors or any, yung mga paraan paano minimize. But having said that, it's really up to the pre-trial chamber to determine Mr. Duterte's fitness to stand trial.
Meron ba tayong precedents for something like this, Attorney? Kasi some would say na, well, his fitness to stand trial doesn't mitigate any guilt on his part. Rather siguro matutuloy yung trial. Ang sabi ng iba, pwedeng matuloy, pero yung sentence would be different.
Actually, let's try to separate those two issues, because they're actually very separate. Fitness to stand trial only means that the person, the detainee, the accused, the suspect understands his or her rights and can exercise those rights. Now, as to guilt or non-guilt or justifying circumstances, it's really a separate matter because it pertains to the mental state of that person when the offenses were committed.
Okay, it says here po based on the report that they are tasked to assess whether any special measures or adjustments are recommended to address any of Duterte's medical conditions. So, alam po ba natin ano kaya yung adjustment na yun or special measures that they will do for this case, just in case?
As of now, it's really difficult to define those special measures recommended. But we can also expect that there will be a publicly redacted version because, in fact, even the conclusions, the findings itself of the three-person panel, they should be publicly available after the necessary reduction. So we should expect that to go a few days or weeks from now.
So, well, alam natin wala pang decision, but of course, Attorney, I have to ask you straight out kasi is there a chance na hindi na matuloy itong kaso? Kasi for the average Joe, like most of our viewers, hindi na intindihan ano yung mga nangyayari.
But for us, for the victims of the war on drugs, we really hope that this will continue on to confirmation of charges because we believe that Mr. Duterte is fit to stand trial. In fact, the the daughter of the president, even of the former president,
Yes.
even spoke to him, about politics. And if you can understand politics, then you have the cognitive ability on its face of the situation. So that's really the belief of the victims of the war on drugs, and we hope that the pre-trial chamber will confirm that and will schedule ultimately the confirmation of charges.
Okay, so meron po kasi nakalagay dito sa report na by December 12, the parties have been invited to make any observations on them by December 12. So what is going to be happening in that event?
Well, it will be a pleading, a written pleading that will be filed by the parties and participants, so OTP, the defense, and the OPCV. And we hope and we expect also that it will be published after the necessary redactions. So, mga observations na po yan, written lang po yan, wala talagang hearing na tinatawag. Kasi after that, then the pre-trial chamber will determine after looking at all of the necessary documents.
Would you know po, I understand, sabi niyo po, hopefully yung redacted version ng ICC Pre-Trial Chamber po dito sa magiging desisyon nila sa medical evaluation ay maipalabas, ay maipakita po sa publiko. Pero would you know po kung kailan po sila talaga makakapag-desisyon so that, of course, yung mga victims po natin are waiting pa rin po para masimulan na nga po itong confirmation of charges pa lang po tayo, hindi pa tayo nakakapunta dun eh.
Opo, it's really difficult as of now to give a specific date, but it should be a reasonable period. So when I say reasonable period, it should maybe more or less 1 month. But
Very soon
for me, that's a reasonable period. It should not be years. It should just be months or even at most 1 month.
And for now po, yun lang po ba yung inaantay natin? Kasi natapos na tayo dun sa isa natin na inantay, yung sa interim release. Tapos ngayon, yung medical evaluation so that we could move forward to the confirmation of charges.
Well, we're also waiting for the decision of the appeals chamber on the appeal, on the jurisdictional challenge. Remember that the defense also assailed the jurisdiction of the ICC, and then that was actually dismissed by the pre-trial chamber. And they actually elevated that to the appeals chamber. So we also hope that there will be a same procedure, there will be a scheduling order by the appeals chamber. And so that's also what we're awaiting.
Yung attorney, kasi may pinapoint outan yung iba na the day, we were also talking about it kanina, that the day before the president was arrested, he was very sharp and the usual old former President Duterte in giving a speech in Hong Kong. And all of a sudden, for some pointed out that hindi naman daw dapat ganong kabilis ang cognitive decline coming from that to a few months after being detained. Will the court or the pre-trial chamber take this into consideration?
Of course, the pre-trial chamber will take into consideration all of the circumstances, all of the data submitted to it, as well as all of the pleadings, both from the three-person panel, the OPCV, the OTP, as well as the defense. So I think all of the necessary data after December 12 will be before the pre-trial chamber. So it will give an informed decision.
Pero I was wondering, attorney, whatever the decision on this medical evaluation by the pre-trial chamber, mag-a-appeal ba ulit, whoever?
After?
Oo, kasi parang may ganun pa rin po bang proseso?
Well, that's always a remedy available under the rules of procedure and the Rome Statute. But let me just also clarify that actually there's no precedent of a accused or a detainee who's challenging his or her fitness to stand trial. The ICC has not yet granted the challenge based on fitness to stand trial. So that's the ICC jurisprudence as it stands.
Unique on its own, kumbaga, parang first time ito dyan na nangyari.
Well, actually, there were also challenges before, Al-Hassan, for example, but the ICC just affirmed that the accused is fit to stand trial. So let's see what will be the pre-trial chamber's decision.
Well, attorney, of course, anong tanong ng marami, let's say, na-resolve na natin yung mga appeals, tapos we go to the confirmation of charges. What other roadblocks or can we expect from the defense team na pwede nila i-mount to delay the trial from starting?
Well, it's really difficult to answer that question because that's up to the defense. But for us, the victims, we're ready to file the victims' views and responses because the victims have been waiting for this.
Right.
Wala po sila naghihintay ng hustisya para po sa kanilang mahal sa buhay.
So, attorney, sana next year meron na kaya tayong trial?
We really hope, and next year, the important date is after January 27 because January 27 is the start of the calendar year of the ICC.
Okay.
So, after January 27.
Yun nga po, attorney, we've been talking about the defense, legal strategy, whatever. Lagi na lang po yung tungkol kay Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. But seldom we talk about the victims. How are they po? Ano po yung mga reaksyon nila dito sa proseso na nangyayari sa kanilang kaso?
Well, naiinip na rin sila. Gusto na nilang ipagpatuloy, yung pong confirmation of charges kasi alam naman po natin, it's been how many years? About 9 years since the start of the 2016 warrant. In fact, last Friday, there was a filing before the Philippine Supreme Court of a motion for reconsideration, on the Tokhang survivor incident, So, matagal na rin po, opo. Kami naman sa Center Law, we've been handling war on drugs victims since 2016. We're ready and able to represent the victims of the war on drugs.
Right. So if and when the trial proceeds, are we going to be expecting, aside from the victim's family and the victims themselves, yung mga known personalities will be testifying, such as Congresswoman Laila de Lima, Senator Trillanes, yung mga ganun?
Okay, as to the ICC, it's really up to the Office of the Prosecutor because they have that burden and the duty to present the victims or present any witnesses that will actually confirm the charges. So, in fact, the SOP in the ICC, they don't really talk about it. They don't really reveal or disclose it.
Right.
Publicly, doon na lang sa mga parties. So, let's see how the OTP will deal with this matter.
Attorney, I'd like to take this opportunity also, pinag-uusapan na rin kasi natin dito yung impending possible arrest of Senator Bato anytime. Ano po reaction ng mga, yung mga victims or yung mga families ng victims about this?
Well, they're really hoping that eventually there will be an ICC arrest warrant against Senator Bato de la Rosa because if you just follow logic, it was then Chief PNP Bato who issued Command Memorandum Circular 16-2016 of double barrel. And that was really the basis for the extrajudicial killings under the war on drugs, which formed the basis of counts 2 and 3 against Mr. Duterte. So they're really, really hoping that the ICC will issue an arrest warrant against Senator Bato de la Rosa.
Well, some legal luminaries are saying as well na if, let's say for example, pwede daw po si Senator Bato de la Rosa would take sole responsibility of this war on drugs para daw po mapalaya si Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. First question, is that even legal? Second question, would that sit well with the victims?
Well, yung first question muna, they have different criminal responsibilities under the Rome Statute. Kasi there's indirect perpetrator, as well as inciting, as well as other modes of criminal responsibility charged against Mr. Duterte. And so, there's also a different mode for Senator Bato, if ever. And so the admission of guilt by one does not actually erase the guilt of the other. You know that even in local jurisprudence, yung conspiracy, and remember the context here is an international crime for crimes against humanity, for murder. Therefore, any admission does not erase the criminal liability of another one. Now, number two, actually for the victims, they're really asking for full justice. So whoever were responsible, especially the masterminds, especially those at the top echelons of the Philippine government and the PNP, they're really asking for justice. Because as of now, actually our victims filed a ombudsman criminal complaint. against the low-level perpetrators. It was dismissed by the Ombudsman. That's public record. And there was a petition for certiorari before the Supreme Court to challenge the dismissal by the Ombudsman. It was also dismissed by the Supreme Court. That's why we filed last Friday a motion for reconsideration. And our argument is that this might actually show absurd situation, a potentially absurd situation, wherein the mastermind is being under custody and facing charges before the ICC, but the low-level perpetrators, they're actually not being prosecuted. So all of the victims, they really want full justice for the victims of the war.
Alright, with that, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras, Atty. Gilbert Andres, an ICC-accredited lawyer. Maraming salamat po sa inyong oras.
Maraming salamat po at mabuhay tayo.